Imagine a world where humanity wasn't a singular entity, but a diverse tapestry of species, each with unique adaptations and histories. What if I told you that for most of our past, Homo sapiens were just one among many humankinds roaming the Earth? 40 or 50,000 years ago, if you traversed the globe, you would have encountered beings resembling us, yet distinctly different. Some were shorter and more robust. Others possessed heavy brow ridges and powerful physiques perfectly suited for frigid climates. There were those who evolved in isolation on islands into almost mythical forms, and some so enigmatic we know them more through their DNA than their actual faces. And then there was us, Homo sapiens. Today we stand alone, the sole surviving human species. We weren't the strongest nor the oldest, nor did we endure the longest, merely the last ones left. This undeniable truth begs a profound and unsettling question. What truly happened to all the others? For the vast majority of human history, the concept of being human wasn't monolithic. It represented a sprawling experimental family tree, constantly branching and adapting. Evolution didn't settle on a single design. It continuously innovated, producing diverse bodies, distinct brains, varied tools, and myriad strategies for surviving our perilous planet. Yet, one by one, these other branches withered and vanished. The perplexing truth is that we still don't fully comprehend why. There wasn't a singular, definitive moment when the world unequivocally selected Homo sapiens. No grand battle, no catastrophic disaster, no clean, decisive ending. Instead, their story unfolds as a gradual, creeping disappearance. Isolated populations fragmenting, climate shifting too rapidly for biological adaptation, food sources dwindling, new competitors emerging, groups intermingling, groups perishing, and perhaps in some cases, simply profound misfortune. To begin our exploration, we must understand Homo erectus, a species far from a failed evolutionary experiment. In many respects, they were among the most triumphant humans to ever walk the earth. They emerged approximately 2 million years ago, long before our own species. Their bodies exhibited a strikingly modern appearance compared to earlier human ancestors. Long legs, shorter arms, a physique perfectly adapted for traversing and running across vast open landscapes. They were likely pioneers, the first humans to venture far beyond Africa, settling in parts of Asia and enduring for an astonishingly long period, significantly longer than Homo sapiens has existed. If our species seems enduring, the story of Homo erectus should give us pause, for they thrived for well over 1 million years before ultimately vanishing. Their facial features differed from ours, characterized by a low skull, a prominent brow ridge, and a brain smaller than modern humans, but considerably larger than their ape-like predecessors. They crafted stone tools, engaged in both hunting and scavenging, and adapted to diverse, changing environments across immense geographical ranges. For a very long time, these adaptations proved sufficient. However, the most recent Homo erectus fossils, discovered at Nyandong on the island of Java, are currently dated to between 117,000 and 108,000 years ago. By this epoch, the world had undergone significant transformations. Other human species had emerged. The climate was highly unstable, forests expanded and receded, rivers altered their courses, and animal populations migrated. Homo erectus, having survived for an almost unfathomable duration, finally disappeared. The precise reasons remain unknown. Perhaps their remaining populations became geographically isolated, or they simply couldn't adapt quickly enough to the rapidly changing environments. It's also possible that newer human species outcompeted them. Their extinction, however, imparts a crucial early lesson. Longevity does not equate to immortality. Next, we encounter the Neanderthals, a human species many believe they understand. For generations, they were depicted as brutish cave dwellers, slow, primitive, and only half human. This portrayal, however, is profoundly inaccurate. Neanderthals were not an evolutionary failure. They represented a distinct and highly successful solution to a universal challenge: how to thrive during the Ice Age. Their bodies were immensely powerful, shorter and stockier than ours, featuring broad chests, strong arms, and thick bones. Their faces were characterized by large noses, prominent brow ridges, and long, low skulls. They were perfectly engineered for frigid environments where body heat dissipated rapidly, and food was often scarce. They engaged in close-range hunting of large animals, a perilous existence evident in their injuries, which sometimes resemble those sustained by modern rodeo riders who venture too close to powerful beasts. Neanderthals mastered fire, crafted sophisticated tools, and likely provided care for injured members of their groups. There is even evidence suggesting they used pigments in ornaments. They were not monstrous inhabitants of the dark. They were people of a different kind, and for hundreds of thousands of years they flourished. Then, Homo sapiens began to expand into their territories, and after approximately 40,000 years ago, the physical traces of Neanderthals vanish. Biologically, as a distinct living human species, they were gone. But the critical question remains, why? The simplistic old narrative suggested we arrived, we were smarter, and we simply eradicated them. The truth, however, is far more complex. Neanderthals lived in small, dispersed populations of precarious existence. Such small groups are highly susceptible to ordinary calamities. A brutal winter, a failed hunt, a devastating disease, or a birth rate that remains too low for too long. Ancient DNA analysis indicates that some late Neanderthal groups possessed low genetic diversity, suggesting they may have already been vulnerable even before Homo sapiens became a significant factor. Compounding this, the climate was in constant flux, oscillating between cold and warmer phases, altering animal migrations, plant life, and entire landscapes. Imagine striving for survival when the very world you comprehend is perpetually rearranging itself. Now, introduce another human species into these same territories, a species that formed broader social networks, engaged in long-distance exchange, possibly innovated more rapidly, and perhaps possessed superior methods for connecting disparate groups across vast spaces. Not necessarily stronger, nor inherently better in every conceivable way, but crucially, more flexible in the one aspect that truly mattered. The disappearance of Neanderthals was likely not the result of losing a single decisive war, but rather a culmination of 1,000 smaller battles against isolation, a volatile climate, persistent competition, and the relentless march of time. Then we turn to the Denisovans, a species so enigmatic they are almost spectral. While we possess skulls, bones, tools, and even burial sites for Neanderthals, the Denisovan saga began with a minuscule finger bone unearthed in a Siberian cave, a fragment so unassuming it seemed incapable of rewriting human history. Yet DNA analysis revealed it belonged to a previously unknown human group, distinct from both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Denisovans likely inhabited a vast expanse of Asia, from Siberia to the Tibetan Plateau and potentially Southeast Asia, but their fossil record remains frustratingly sparse. A finger bone, a few teeth, some jaw fragments, and a handful of other rare remains. For years, we didn't even know what their faces looked like. Despite this scarcity of physical evidence, their genetic legacy is immense. Certain modern populations in Oceania and parts of Asia carry significant Denisovan ancestry. Remarkably, Tibetans inherited a specific gene variant crucial for high-altitude survival directly from Denisovan-related humans. This stands as one of the most astonishing revelations in human evolution. A vanished human group still aids living people in breathing the thin air of towering mountains. But as a distinct living population, the Denisovans too disappeared. The youngest known Denisovan fossil evidence dates to approximately 40,000 years ago, though some genetic data suggests certain groups might have persisted until around 30,000 years ago. After this point, their presence simply fades. Why? We don't have definitive answers. Their geographical range may have been extensive, but their populations might have been sparse. It's plausible they were absorbed into incoming Homo sapiens groups in some regions, or perhaps outnumbered in others. Climate shifts could have fragmented their habitats, and precisely because we possess so few fossils, their extinction remains one of the most obscure chapters in the human story. The Denisovans offer a discomforting reminder. A human species can vanish so utterly that almost nothing remains but scattered fragments and genetic code. No cities, no monuments. No oral histories, just DNA. Finally, we encounter Homo floresiensis, arguably the most peculiar subject of our discussion. On the remote island of Flores in Indonesia, scientists unearthed the remains of a diminutive ancient human. So small they were affectionately dubbed hobbits, standing approximately 1 meter tall with small brains and compact bodies. They nonetheless crafted tools and thrived on an island teeming with formidable giant birds, fearsome Komodo dragons, and dwarf elephants known as stegodon. Initially, many found their existence almost unbelievable, questioning if they were diseased modern humans or some anomalous population. However, the accumulating evidence pointed to a far more astonishing truth. They represented a distinct human species, perfectly adapted to their isolated island environment. Islands are known to exert peculiar evolutionary pressures. Large animals can undergo dramatic shrinkage, while small animals may grow significantly, as island ecosystems operate under different ecological rules. This phenomenon is termed island dwarfism, and Homo floresiensis stands as one of the most striking examples within the human family. Their fossils at Liangbua are currently dated to roughly between 100,000 and 60,000 years ago, with associated stone tools found as recently as 50,000 years ago. This latter date is particularly poignant, as modern humans were actively migrating through the region during that general period, and then Homo floresiensis vanished. Once more, the precise reasons elude us. Perhaps climate shifts altered the island's delicate environment, or their crucial prey populations dwindled. Volcanic activity might have disrupted the ecosystem, or the arrival of Homo sapiens could have introduced additional pressures. On a small island, a global catastrophe isn't necessary. A small, isolated population can be obliterated by a cascade of localized problems: reduced water availability, declining prey, increased competition, a single volcanic eruption, or even just one challenging stretch of generations. In such circumstances, an entire human species can be extinguished. This is precisely what makes Homo floresiensis so profoundly unsettling. They weren't vying for control of an entire planet. They were merely striving to survive on a single island, and even that precarious existence proved insufficient. So, why did Homo sapiens endure while all these other human species ultimately perished? Here the answer becomes perilous if we oversimplify it. It's tempting to assert that we were simply smarter, yet Neanderthals demonstrated profound intelligence. Denisovans adapted to some of Earth's most extreme environments. Homo erectus outlasted us by a significant margin, and Homo floresiensis survived in a world that would utterly terrify most modern humans. Therefore, intelligence alone cannot be the sole explanation. Perhaps our greatest advantage lay in connection. Homo sapiens appear to have possessed an exceptional capacity for forming vast social networks, not merely families or small nomadic bands, but expansive webs of individuals, tools, ideas, and vital information. If one group faced failure, another could carry their knowledge forward. If a region became inhospitable, people could relocate. If a tool proved effective, its use could rapidly disseminate. If an idea offered a solution, it wasn't confined to a single valley. This ability to network, not just the individual brain, but the intricate connections between brains, may have been our most powerful asset. While other humans and species undoubtedly possessed culture, Homo sapiens may have developed a culture that traveled further, adapted faster, and interconnected more people. And when the planet plunged into instability, this capacity proved invaluable. A species with robust networks can absorb shocks that isolated groups simply cannot withstand. Yet, even this doesn't render us destined winners. Luck played a significant role. Geography mattered. Timing was crucial. Population size held immense weight. It's plausible that Homo sapiens survived partly because of our adaptability, and partly because we fortuitously found ourselves in the right places, with the right numbers, at the right historical junctures. These other humans were not mere stepping stones on our path. They were not incomplete versions of ourselves. They were distinct experiments with their own rich histories and their own unique ways of being human. And now they are gone. Homo erectus, after more than 1,000,000 years of dominance. Neanderthals, after mastering the challenges of the Ice Age world. Denisovans, leaving behind only rare bones and tantalizing genetic clues. Homo floresiensis, the diminutive island humans who vanished just as our own species arrived in their vicinity. Today, when we utter the word human, we invariably refer to Homo sapiens. But this is only because every other meaning has disappeared. We are not the apex of an evolutionary ladder. We are merely the last surviving branch of a once flourishing tree that bore many living limbs, and perhaps this realization should instill in us a sense of humility rather than superiority. For if the stories of these other humans teach us anything, it is this: extinction doesn't exclusively befall the weak. It claims the isolated, the unlucky, the highly specialized, the outnumbered, and those living through changes too rapid to overcome. And one day, if we are not vigilant, the last human species might just learn that same profound lesson.